Just humongous day of casting. I was not expecting to have to make a video about this. Honestly, I was a little late. I was expecting to make a video about the yellow Wolverine suit. The video is just going to be me saying I think it's good. I think it's a nice transition suit between, I think what we need is basically like spandex like Christopher Reeve wore, and it's going to take some time to get from where Wolverine was to there, and this is like right in the middle. It's got all the Marvel-y lines, but it's also bright and yellow. It's great. I do think, you know, the sleeves are strange looking, but I'm sure they have a good reason, and I can't wait to see what the mask looks like. I'm sure they'll give him a mask. That is all I have to say about that, but we're not talking about that because today we got 3 huge pieces of casting news from the new DC movies. These could be characters that are the main character of their own movie or show. Seems like they're going to be in Superman Legacy, and maybe they'll show up in other places. We'll talk about it. But I don't know why these came out now and why specifically them. Maybe something got leaked and it was going to come out. Maybe they're going to start filming soon. I mean, there's going to be maybe an actor strike and still a writer strike. So like itching to start immediately or get this news out. I don't know. But for whatever reason, via a Vanity Fair article, we have 3 characters that are going to be in Superman Legacy. And it has been confirmed by James Gunn. It's all... Yeah, this is a full announcement. So we're going to go through all 3 of them. We're going to talk about the characters. We're going to talk about the actors. We're going to talk about what I think they're doing here. And just in general, what I think this means for the DCEU. Because I do think, and I don't know if we're not calling it DCEU, the DC Universe, let's say. But we'll talk about what it means for the DC Universe. Because I do think some of these characters do say something about other characters we're going to see soon. Which I think is very interesting. Were these characters I expected to see in this movie? Yes and no. I didn't expect to see any of them in Superman Legacy. You know, Mr. Terrific we knew was coming. James Gunn mastodoned about him not too long ago, maybe 6 months ago. But just a picture of Mr. Terrific, but he's done that with Mr. Terrific and Lobo. And we knew that some of these characters were going to show up in other things. I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Terrific shows up in something else first. I don't know what the release order is. I don't know where Waller shows up in this slate. I believe the announcement had Creature Commandos, Waller, Superman Legacy, and he seems like a character that would make sense in Waller because, you know, he could be connected to Cadmus and doing science and nanotechnology stuff. That feels pretty natural, but it apparently is going to be in Superman Legacy. I think that's great. And we're going to go through all 3, all the characters, all the actors, and give you a sense for what I think they're doing here. Because right off the bat, none of them are characters that I would be like, oh, they got to have them in a Superman movie. Like, they're not even Superman adjacent characters. Like, you could say, you know, for instance, in my pitch, I put Steel in there. I wouldn't say Steel is like, you got to get Steel in a Superman movie. He would make the most sense in a Superman movie, but you can make a Superman movie without him. So these guys, like, none of them, I don't think, premiered in Superman books. I'm going to say that, and immediately that's going to be wrong. But they're not known for Superman stuff. 3 of them, 2 are connected to one superhero team. 1 is connected to another superhero team and a bunch of other things. We'll get to it. So let's start with Mr. Terrific since he was the first one. So Michael Holt, decathlete. He is... you know, super genius, one of many, many super geniuses in the DC universe. But honestly, I think he is one of the smarter ones. I think he's probably on the top tier. You know, a lot of people compared him to Steel for reasons I get. You know, they're both black and they're both like, he's going to be in this movie. And in my pitch, I was like, Steel should be in a Superman movie. And they're both like super geniuses who invent a technology that lets them fight with the superheroes, but they have no power of their own. However, they are very different, right? Like, Mr. Terrific is nanotechnology, like genius level stuff. Whereas John Henry Irons, very smart, but like an engineer, like Iron Man kind of. It's like the difference between Iron Man and like Mr. Fantastic. I know the name Mr. Terrific's like, oh, like Mr. Fantastic. I honestly don't know how connected that is, right? Like that idea. They made a book recently called The Terrifics, which was kind of like a, hey, we're going to take a couple characters, cobble them together, make a Mr. Fantastic, you know, analog, Invisible Woman analog, all that. I really wouldn't be surprised if we get that pretty soon. I don't remember where I heard that name come up besides just me reading the book. Maybe James Gunn has said he's read that book or something. I really don't remember. I don't have a good, you know, source there. But I do feel like the Terrifics would be funny. It would be really funny if they got that out before the Fantastic Four. I mean, to be fair, out of the Terrifics and the Fantastic Four, Mr. Fantastic has not yet been cast. None of the Fantastic Four have, but we got Mr. Terrific. So DC, they're blowing blowing ahead of you, Marvel. You got to start announcing some Fantastic Four cast members soon. I mean, do it when you're ready, but whatever. But yeah, so Mr. Terrific is kind of in his own space there. And also just all around, he is like, that's kind of what he's very smart. He's also a very good guy, good role model. His story is like a tragedy in his past where his wife, who was pregnant and died in, I believe, a car accident, and that was kind of his motivating factor, or at least it has been in some stories. He played a big part in Strange Adventures, the DC book that I would really recommend. I think it's fantastic, by Tom King, that came out 2 years ago. I honestly don't know too many other like big Mr. Terrific solo stories, but I do think that just he's a good character. He's a good all-around player too. Like, you can put him on different teams and he'll work. You know, you could send him to space. He has the technology level, but also he could be a street level character. Like, he's very adaptable. I like that. And also, there have been 2 Mr. Terrifics. The first one was in the Justice Society. It was a different guy. He had a big shield that said fair play on it on his shirt, which is why the second Mr. Terrific has a big the word fair play on his sleeve of his jacket, and that's like how you kind of picture him. He has a big T made of nanotechnology that like scrambles his face so no one can see him on like cameras, which is good. Yeah, I think Mr. Terrific's cool. I had kind of thought, someone mentioned him recently, and I was like, oh yeah, you know what, this could be a good place for my Mr. Fantastic, William Jackson Harper. I still think he'd be a good Mr. Terrific, only because my only thing with Eddie Gathetti, who I like, I think he's good. I watched, obviously, Darwin in First Class. I saw the Cowboys movie, The Harder They Fall, which I thought was good, and he had a small part in. Not a small part, but like he had a role in. And he was also a big part of this season of For All Mankind. He was the Elon Musk stand-in, and I think he was good. I do think, as a figure goes, he strikes me as like he's tall, very thin, but like I do think Mr. Terrific, right, is, like I said, a decathlete. He's an Olympic decathlete, and I do think William Jackson Harper just is in the perfect spot there for, like, you know, in really good shape and in the kind of shape you'd expect. Although I don't know too much about decathletes besides, like, you know, that one decathlete. There's not a ton, so maybe they do all just look like, you know, Eddie Gathetti and like that. I mean, the body type thing isn't that important. It is just the first thing that came to mind when I thought of it. I was like, oh, that's not what I would picture. But I do think Eddie Gathetti is a good actor. He's, you know, clearly smart, funny. I do think it would be so funny. I talked about this on our podcast, mostly nitpicking, but obviously we all know him as playing Darwin, the X-Men character who can never die, who was killed immediately. It would be very funny and not like, it would be sad and kind of dumb. But if he was also killed immediately in this, and he just got this role, I was like, all right, awesome. You got another character, he's very sympathetic, he's probably going to be around for a while, and then just Darkseid shows up, punches his head off, and it's like, God damn it. What do I have to do to be in more than one of these? So I think Eddie Gathetti is good. I like that casting. Where do I think he shows up? I do think he makes sense in Waller. What role does he play in Superman Legacy? I think he'll just be like another technology superhero out there. Maybe like working for Cadmus. Like, I think he'll be the hook between Waller and Superman Legacy, in that, like, he'll show up in Waller and get trained up. Maybe he's even like the main character. That's possible. And Waller's kind of like a side character or like just the big villain. And by the end of the show, he's going out to start as a superhero and he sees Superman show up. I don't know, but I don't think he'll be a Cadmus agent, although he could. And his job is just to monitor Superman at this point. This is before maybe he strikes on as Mr. Terrific. Because again, if we're introducing Superman, and yes, he's, you know, going to be somewhat established, but still we're introducing him to the world, like this character and this actor and like this version of the character. It does feel like throwing Mr. Terrific in here. It's like, that's a lot of work. But overall, I think it's good casting, solid. Next one, Isabella Merced is playing Hawkgirl. Now I feel like I read this, but I don't want to know it for sure, Shayar Hall. Although she's a little bit less difficult than Hawkman in terms of pinning down what that character is, because his origin is just nuts. Hers is kind of, but also I think because I forget where I remember hearing this, James Gunn is very influenced by the Justice League animated series and that universe building. I cannot help but imagine that means we're getting something closer to Shiera, the Thanagarian, in that show. Now, does it follow her whole arc? Is she going to be like a deep cover agent? Probably not. But she will be like an alien who showed up on Earth and, you know, maybe has some connection to gods and history like that. I don't know. Okay, Isabella Merced. She's been in a couple of things, like one that I've seen, which is the Transformers 5. She played the girl in the beginning of the movie that is friends with a Transformer And Mark Wahlberg calls J-Lo very racistly, and then we don't do anything with that character for the rest of the movie until the very end, and then shows up again. Transformers 5 is a mess. It has Cogman, so it's great, but it's wild. If you've never seen it, there's a scene where there's like 18 different aspect ratios, and this is not action. This is just close-up, tight shots on faces. Just the camera, they cannot decide. It's really weird. Anyway, she's fine in that. It's not a big role. She's Dora the Explorer in the Dora the Explorer movie, but I haven't seen that, so I don't know if that's, how good that is. I mean, she's been acting a little longer. I think it's interesting. Two things about her that strike me as interesting. One, she's young, in her 20s. And that means, and I kind of expected this is how it would happen in universe, I have a feeling they will get into her relationship with Jon Stewart, the Green Lantern, not the Carolina Panthers running back or the Daily Show host. And she is, younger than I would expect for, I figured if they would cast a Jon Stewart, he'd be in his 30s. That's just how I see that character. And if that's the case, it'll be a little young for her. Now she's an alien, and obviously we can play around with that, but I think that means we'll probably also get a Jon Stewart in his early to mid-20s if they are going to have a relationship. But I do think the fact that we're introducing Hawkgirl and another Green Lantern, which we'll get to in this, does lead me to believe that some of this casting is pointing to Green Lantern. If that's the case, I bet Jon Stewart would be the same age as her. Also, she's quite short. Short queen, if you will. I don't know if that's a thing. I hear about Short King all the time, but she is, I believe, 5'1", which is interesting because she's just going to be standing next to a bunch of 6 foot tall guys. I'm pretty sure some of them, I think Corda Sweat's pretty tall. And she's gonna have these humongous wings. I don't know what they're gonna do, if they're gonna play around with it, or she'll be standing on egg crates. But it's just interesting. It's a factor that you hear she's playing Hawkgirl. It's oh, okay, well, cool. The character of Hawkgirl, they could do a lot with. There's a lot of different ways you could play her. So these three people are three characters I believe that were mentioned in my 10 characters hiding in the James Gunn announcement thing. I think I even said Mr. Terrific, but I was like, that's too easy because James Gunn had already talked about him. You know what I did? I think I said he would be the agent of Cadmus, and then Captain Atom would show up in Creature Commandos, which we'll get to. But the idea that Hawkgirl is going to be a big player in this makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I think if she's in her 20s, I think that means our Jon Stewart will probably also be in his 20s. So that really changes what we're looking at here. And now it's the buddy cop aspect of that movie or show could be very different. There were rumors that Tom Cruise was going to be playing the Hal Jordan, which I don't know if that's true or not, but if that's true, he's in his 60s. I think he's 60 now, maybe. He doesn't look it, but then you would be paired up with a 20-year-old, which could happen. I'm sure that is a pairing that makes sense for police, but yeah, you just kind of figured get paired with a 30-year-old, but I don't know. I don't know how old Trevante Rhodes is, but he's kind of what I'd expect as a Jon Stewart, just a very simple Jon Stewart casting. But now I think we might get something a little younger, which is cool. Has he factored into the movie? Couldn't guess. But we're not talking about him. We're talking about Hawkgirl. Has Hawkgirl factored into this movie? I have no idea. Because she is connected to some of these characters, right? Mr. Terrific, Justice Society. She's that connection, Hawkman. That is something that makes sense for that character. And she's not in the Justice League yet. I don't think that exists. I can't imagine it exists. What if she's in the Authority? Because we get this in my new video that is currently on Nebula and will be out on YouTube very soon, hopefully before James Gunn casts them all. The Authority has 7 members traditionally. I cast an 8th character who I think will show up in there, and it seems like that will probably happen. Or at least there have been some rumors that have pointed to it. The 7th member of the team, easily the least important in terms of her powers and just how many storylines she's central to, is Swift, a character who is just a kind of mutant in that universe, or maybe she's a magic egg baby, it's unclear, but her whole thing is just she can fly. She has wings and she can fly. And what if when they do the Authority, they just have her be their Swift, and she is a superhero who's kind of floating around in this universe. And I think James Gunn said the Authority are not the bad guys in the Superman Legacy movie, which maybe that's true. A, maybe he's lying, but B, maybe they're not called the Authority. Maybe they're called Stormwatch, or they're called, Wildcats. I mean, they wouldn't be called Wildcats. Stormwatch makes the most sense. Or they're called the Elite. And then they form the Authority, but instead of just going all right, well, we're going to do the 7 Authority members. Instead of Janie Sparks, we do Manchester Black. And instead of Swift, we do Hawkgirl. So we form kind of this both, mesh of them, so that by the end of this, we have a team that is a lot like members of the Justice League are in there. I mean, hell, you could even take out the Engineer and sub her out. Like, let's say she's bad and, she dies in this movie. The Authority version of her could be Mr. Terrific. I don't love that because I do think those characters are very different. Whereas like the Hawkgirl Swift thing, easy. You could do that you could read the books and just cross it out and change the name of the Authority character Swift to Hawkgirl, and the book makes just as much sense, and it's a fine characterization of Hawkgirl. So I bet that's what they do. I bet she plays a role in Authority. Maybe she's even on their team in the beginning and she leaves. Like maybe there is a Stormwatch team that is the bad. If you've not watched my Authority video, watch that, because that explains kind of who these guys are, big picture. But like maybe they show up and it's Hawksmoor, the Engineer, the Doctor, and Hawkgirl. Ooh, Hawkgirl and Hawksmoor. Don't like that. But then she becomes a good guy. I think that's true. I also think when I was talking about her, I mean, the one difference is she's traditionally Chinese, but I was casting younger for that, and she would be the younger member of that team. Yeah, I don't know. That feels right. Here's what I don't think we'll do. Get a Swift now. I think it's either Hawkgirl or Swift, or we're not doing her. I don't think we're doing two women with wings from different powers, like different groups at the same time. It's too much. So yeah, interesting. But then the big one. Be Still My Beating Heart. James Gunn has been reading my diary, I guess. My secret witch journal that I don't even put into videos because I've never said I want this in a video. Nathan Fillion is going to be playing Guy Gardner. He's the third Green Lantern. I mean, I don't even know what the order they were introduced in, but it's like Alan Scott, Hal Jordan, Guy Gardner, I think, John Stewart, Kyle Rayner, da-da-da-da-da-da. Obviously, there's Space Lanterns that are different than them. But in general, he's one of the first Green Lanterns. But most people, including myself, were introduced to him through Justice League International, which was a Justice League team that was there was a book that was supposed to follow Justice League, except they were rebooting most of the characters or like doing different things with them. So they couldn't do Wonder Woman, couldn't do Flash, couldn't do Superman. They had Batman, they had Martian Manhunter. They had to bring in some other guys, and their Green Lantern was Guy Gardner, who has a really dopey bowl cut. He is a redhead, which I think is fun. Fun specifically because it's good color contrast with the green. Like they've changed him since then, but like those JLI days, he was a real piece of work. He's famous for, in that first issue, getting punched by Batman because Batman is sick of him. Now, obviously, Nathan Fillion is one of those James Gunn guys who's in all the James Gunn stuff, and also he can play a real like doofus really well. That's kind of what he does in Guardians 3. And I like Nathan Fillion a lot. I think he has a lot of range, but I think one of the things he's great at is playing a guy who thinks he's better at what he's doing than he really is. And that is what Guy Gardner is, especially early Guy Gardner, the kind that I think most people find the most entertaining. I did not expect he'd be the first Green Lantern to get cast. Hearing Guy Gardner the same day that a Blue Beetle trailer comes out that shows like the scarab and all that stuff, but also like the Blue Beetle costume, the original one. I don't remember if it's in the new trailer, but we've seen it before. And also, knowing a Booster Gold show is coming, and knowing a Batman movie is coming, I can't not go like, are we doing Justice League International? I don't know who I definitely want on that team. I think Martian Manhunter would need to be there. I think Fire and Ice, even though like kind of the generations don't quite work out. Like I don't know if all those characters were on the team at the same time. And then Mr. Miracle, because James Gunn loves comics, of course he's going to make a Mr. Miracle something. Like, I do think we'll get a proper Justice League with Superman and all that. But also, what if Superman goes and does Authority stuff and Batman forms this other Justice League that is the JLI? I think that would be so great. Like, it's such a good run, and it's such a good, like, we're gonna follow the Justice League, but we're not gonna do the same thing. We're gonna make them kind of dicks. They're flawed characters, but they're fun, they're lovable, and like, even characters like Guy Gardner, who start off as just real heels, have evolved to become some people's favorite Green Lanterns. I don't know if he's my favorite. Like, I love the Jon Stewart show, and that was kind of my formative Green Lantern. But at the same time, there's something really special about a character who deserves to be punched constantly by everyone. Like, that character can be a lot of fun to watch grow. Now, what role does he play here? I don't know. I don't think he can be in the Authority. But I also don't think the Green Lanterns can just show up at the end of the movie and be like, hey, we're the Green Lanterns. Assuming the rest of the people that are yet to be cast are Luthors, some Authority members, maybe Brainiac. Part of me is also worried he dies in this. Like, if there is a problem where certain anti-heroes to go from anti-heroes to villains and start killing heroes, the one played by Nathan Fillion, if just by watching a couple of these, I would say is in some jeopardy, because he does not do super well in these James Gunn movies. Got great parts, very memorable, tends to die. I'm assuming the one in Guardians also died. That's probably not. He probably didn't die though. I don't know. Groot crashed that spaceship into the loading dock. Was anybody able to get out of there? I don't know. But I cannot see him, Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, and not think JLI. Which kind of, I don't know. And I think James Gunn is a comics fan, obviously. He knows they exist. It's something they haven't done yet. They just did Justice Society. Otherwise, I'd say that's probably the direction some of these characters would point to. And they still do. But, I don't think they're itching to reboot that. Whereas with JLI, it's potentially new ground that could be super fun and popular. It's like the Suicide Squad or Guardians of the Galaxy of Justice Leagues. So I don't think there is a secret project in here called Justice League International, although there could be, but I don't think it is a coincidence that all of these characters are showing up. Here's what I think we'll get that will prove this. I think we will get rumblings of a Mr. Miracle something, movie, show, whatever, but it will be like, that'll start coming through. It's like Mr. Miracle's getting a thing. And that'll be the hint to me, like, that's definitely happening. I also think Fire and Ice, but you could throw them in something like Booster Gold or whatever. Like, you could start introducing some of these characters in Booster Gold. In fact, Booster Gold could be backdoor JLI with Guy Gardner. Like, he could be in there because they're friends. You have so many options. You could make a Blue Beetle too. Well, the Blue Beetle seems like it's more Jaime now, but that could work too. Like, you could take any of these heroes that are the main one, not Guy Gardner because he's a lantern, you can't name the thing of lanterns, and not Batman because he's doing Brave and the Bold, but yeah, Booster Gold, a Blue Beetle show, Mr. Miracle, those could all be just the JLI, but not called that because Justice League as a brand is a little bit on iffy ground. Is not at all what I was expecting. James Gunn, if you're watching this, and I know you do, because I send them all to you directly. Thank God, please, no one spam him with these. But James Gunn, please give me like 2 days to put my Authority fan casting video out there before you just say who they all are. I've already obviously fan casted one of them, Jack Hawksmoor, that I believe is rumored to be an Authority, but my engineer and my doctor are both in this video that will be up very soon. Also, I want to say, I saw something, people pointed out, a scooper has scooped, I guess is the word we're using. He scooped a picture of Daniel Craig. Now, that could be anything, right? Daniel Craig was supposed to be Balder in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but then he couldn't do it. So like maybe they're saying like he'll be in one of these things soon, But then he could be Lex Luthor. Doesn't seem like he'd want to do it though. I don't think he'd want to be tied to a franchise like that. But he could be Jack Hawksmoor. I think he's got great Jack Hawksmoor energy. Part of my trouble with Jack Hawksmoor too is like, I just don't know if he's supposed to be British or not. He sometimes talks like he's British, but I swear there is an Authority comic where Jenny Sparks says he's from New York. I don't know where I got that from. Because he definitely, at a certain point, he just feels like reading Billy Butcher. Like, it's like I just read, that's why Carl Urban is so perfect for that role. But I could see Daniel Craig being actually a very good Jack Hawksmoor. I'd be very interested to see if they do that. So, James Gunn, thank you for this. This is very exciting, if nothing else. I think these are all good actors, and I'm happy to see where they go, and I'm happy to get a live-action Guy Gardner. I mean, goddamn, we were gonna get one in that Lanterns HBO show that they were never gonna make, apparently, but like, now we got one, and it's great, and he's fantastic. I can't wait to see him in this stupid haircut. Can't wait to see that. His uniform is the best Green Lantern uniform, in my opinion, because it's so kind of silly. I just can't wait to see all of it. So thank you, James Gunn, for giving us this gift, and I hope everything goes well filming Superman Legacy and Authority and all this, and I hope, that Zaslav, who's probably also watching this, because why the hell not, I hope they pay the writers and the actors fairly and manage to negotiate a contract that is good for everybody, because it seems like it's pretty unsustainable. Someone who would eventually love to write one of these, and by one of these I mean a movie or show, I'd love to have the idea that I will be paid for it. So, all that said, I think this is a very exciting day. We got a lot of good news, and I'm very optimistic about this, and I cannot wait to see what else ends up coming from these movies. That's the end, right? Is that the end? Oh, go to the Nandovi Movies Discord if you want to talk about this more, because we just relaunched it. The link is probably in this video description. and we got a lot to talk about. Plus, I mean, I'm recording this at like 2:30 in the morning. Secret Invasion is about to start. We'll be talking about that too, I imagine. But interesting stuff. Thank you for watching, everybody. I'll see you guys around.